A terrifying encounter with two new classmates. Starting my junior year at Southern Lehigh High School in Pennsylvania, I found myself alone in a new environment. I didn't know anyone, and the thought of trying to fit in was overwhelming. Everyone seemed to have their friend groups already, and the worst part was lunchtime. Since juniors weren't allowed to leave for lunch, I had to eat in the cafeteria, dreading the idea of sitting alone. As I walked in, I was disheartened to see every table full. The only open space was at a small table in the corner with two boys sitting there. They looked approachable, so I nervously asked if I could sit with them. They nodded, and I introduced myself. The two boys, Antonio and Bruno, were identical twins with Hispanic features, but they didn't have any accents. They seemed friendly enough, and after a bit of conversation, they invited me to hang out with them after school. I figured it would be a good opportunity to make some friends, so I agreed, exchanged numbers with them, and went home. Later that evening, I received a text from Bruno asking if I was still coming to meet them. They were planning to hang out near a cemetery, about a 10-minute walk from my house. He mentioned that it was a cool spot, and since the next day was Saturday, I had no plans, so I decided to join them. When I arrived, Bruno told me to meet them by a small lake in the woods, and he sent me their location. I walked into the dark woods with only my phone flashlight to guide me. The further I went, the more uneasy I felt. Suddenly, I heard footsteps behind me. They were slow at first, but then quickened. And before I could react, someone grabbed me from behind, choking me with their nails dug into my neck. I broke free and ran toward the road, hearing them chase me until the tree line. I made it home and told my parents, who considered calling the police. Instead, we reported the incident to the school, and with the help of the text from Bruno, both Antonio and Bruno were expelled. But the nightmare didn't end there. A week later, I woke up to find my bedroom window wide open, though it was freezing outside. After making sure my parents hadn't opened it, I noticed something even more unsettling. My door was half shut, though I had left it wide open. When I checked, I found someone hiding behind the door. I screamed for my dad, who rushed into the room. But by the time he got there, the person had jumped out the window. We later realized it was probably Antonio or Bruno, or both. My dad called the police, but without proof, they couldn't do anything. Though I was scared for a while, nothing further happened, but I learned the hard way to trust my instincts and avoid suspicious people. A disturbing encounter with a substitute teacher. It was my freshman year of high school in 2007, and I had gym class during the last period of the day. We had a substitute teacher that day, a man who appeared to be around 55 or 60. As he took attendance, he did a double take when he looked at me, which made me feel uncomfortable. I'd always been told I looked older than my age, so I thought little of it. We went through the class, and when it was time to change, I went to my locker, but couldn't open it. I tried the combination several times, but it wouldn't work. I figured I'd just forgotten the combo, so I asked the substitute for the list of locker combinations. He came back with the list and walked me to the girls' locker room to help me open it. Inside the almost empty locker room, he kept trying the combination, but it wouldn't open. Each time, he would laugh it off, and I would nervously laugh along. Then things started to feel even stranger when he placed his hand on my shoulder. He tried the combination again, And this time, the locker opened. As I grabbed my stuff to leave, I noticed that the lights suddenly went off. I quickly finished changing and made my way to the exit. As I approached the door, I saw the substitute peeking around the corner of the lockers. My heart raced, and I ran for the door, but he chased after me, calling out that it wasn't what it seemed. I fled outside into the rain, walking home in a daze, reflecting on what had just happened. I later realized that he had likely changed my combination to get me alone in the locker room, possibly intending something worse. But I was too scared and embarrassed to tell anyone, especially my parents or friends. I kept the whole experience to myself, trying to forget it. But even now, it still haunts me. The truth is, I'll never fully understand what his intentions were, but I'll always remember how I felt that day. The creepy experience in the high school basement. During my high school years, I was part of the school band, and one day, I found myself in a dimly lit, eerie basement to make up for missed lessons. It started when my band teacher, Mr. Nicholson, allowed me to practice in one of the storage rooms downstairs during lunch to get credit for missed lessons. Although it was a dark, uninviting space, I agreed, figuring I'd just play games on my phone instead of practicing. The basement had a spooky vibe, as very few people ventured down there, and lights were flickering. I entered one of the small rooms, set up my saxophone, and began to play games on my phone. Suddenly, the lights went out completely, and I tried to turn them back on by flicking the light switch several times, but it was no use. I grabbed my phone to use as a flashlight, and as I walked into the hallway, I noticed a door opening at the end of the hall. I heard something being dragged across the floor, along with strange, animal-like grunting noises. I froze in place, listening to the sounds before a large plastic container was pushed out into the hallway. Panicking, I quickly shut myself back in the storage room and waited, hoping the lights would return. With no reception to call for help, I stayed in the dark, alone and uneasy. After a long, tense wait, I decided to venture out again and try to make my way back upstairs. But as I neared the stairs, I heard something again. I ducked into another room, hoping to hide from whatever was making those noises. The next few minutes felt like an eternity, standing in complete darkness, only listening for any movement. At one point, I felt an overwhelming sense of dread, as if someone was standing right behind me. When I turned on my phone screen for just a second, I saw a figure standing in the corner of the room, 3 feet away. Terrified, I immediately bolted for the door. As I opened it, the person tried to push it shut, but I managed to escape and ran up the stairs. Breathless and shaken, I told Mr. Nicholson, who called security. When they checked the basement, they found some equipment had been moved around, but no one was there. The incident left everyone puzzled, but it seemed clear that someone was trying to steal the school's expensive music equipment. A terrifying encounter in the school's dark hallways. Later that year, my friends and I decided to sneak into the high school basement for a night of mischief. We found a broken window, which we crawled through to gain entry. The basement was eerily quiet, with only a few faint lights. After exploring for a while, one of my friends suggested we head upstairs, so we crept through the dark hallways. The building was completely silent, with no lights on, except for the red glow of exit signs. As we wandered down the hall, things took a disturbing turn. My friend went into the bathroom, and I waited for him, only to hear my phone ring. It was one of our other friends who asked where I was. To my shock, He said that he was with the others, but I could hear them on the speakerphone while they were with me. Confused and panicked, I realized someone else was in the building. That's when I heard laughing coming from the bathroom stall, not from any of my friends. I turned to see a face peering over the stall at me. Terrified, I ran out of the bathroom and bolted for the basement. We quickly made our escape through the broken window and gathered outside, still shaken by the encounter. As we looked back at the school, we noticed a face pressed up against one of the downstairs windows. We all agreed it had to be the person who had been in the bathroom. In a state of panic, we ran as fast as we could, vowing never to sneak around the school again. The unsettling experience left us with more questions than answers, and we couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched.